Welcome back here with Goldberg. Today we'll be talking about whether or not the NeoCons may be correct. You might say, how dare you ask such a question? Wars are destructive to the environment, to the common man. They serve corporate and elite interests. Those are all true, but they may not matter based upon the conditions which you find yourself in. So let's just stop for a second and consider me when I'm discussing the conflict in Ukraine. So I might go, I'm neutral, it's a senseless war, it's a bunch of Europeans, Tartars, and Mongoloids slaughtering each other at a time where especially the European population isn't doing so hot. But I express those sentiments whilst not living in Bakhmut or Kherson when this was erupting, or indeed in the present day. Because if you're a young man or relatively young in decent shape, your options are basically try to run and hope the border guards don't catch you, bring you back, or just shoot you outright. You could consider hiding. That's not a foolproof solution, however. Or you have to pick a side. And you might full well comprehend that it's corrupt, it's pointless, it could have been avoided, but you have to make that choice, or it's going to be made for you. The whole bystander thing isn't going to work too well, especially if you're not super wealthy and able to get yourself moved away from the disaster. Likewise, with what's going on in Gaza, you can be some degenerate wignat hiding behind Justice for Palestine because you want to snipe at Care Bears. But if you're an actual Gazan, you have a choice to make. Try to get out or fight. Just sitting there going, oh, well, it's no big deal, isn't going to work well for you. If you look at some of these videos, your house is probably going to be gone and you as well. And if you're a Care Berry, I know there's propaganda floating around. I don't believe this stuff about children being beheaded. That just seems like grotesque and invented. But real talk, people have been killed, civilians. So you're just going to sit there and try to maintain this idealistic view of we can de-escalate, we can make peace. No, you're probably going to have to pick up a gun and fight. You're going to be drafted. And so that changes the chessboard entirely. This whole, oh, I'm a libertarian, it doesn't affect me. Well, if you're in these parts of the world, it very much does. And it might say something about how a potential and large conflict might impact all of you if you're living in the Western world. That's what I want to discuss in this video. Most of us are aware that the internet has been extremely beneficial for the dissemination of information. At the same time, it can serve as a very effective abortifacient for deeds, for action. Because what happens is many a young Mayo cell in the West gets bunkerized into some category or genre of content where they come to believe activism can be simply consuming more hours, more minutes, more pages of that subject. If you've ever tried telling someone, you know, Peter Rabbit's a nice man, but he's not all that, what'll they respond with? Well, you have to watch another 10 hours of his content to really get it. And that's the whole point. If you just digest an adequate amount, you'll change, and the world spontaneously will change. If we can harass and pressure these content creators to go there, to touch that particular subject, it will gradually come together. If enough people are following so and so, we will be manifesting effective change to institutions. And that's just not how it works. You can definitely practice pushing the envelope and brinkmanship, but ultimately you have to be in real life making changes in your own life or networking with others and organizing beyond the digital webosphere. And this is something they don't really appreciate too much. In fact, over time, as they're seeing that it's not really working out that way, they tend to become quite bitter. They'll have hubris. They'll be hostile towards content creators because they're expecting that creator to lead them to the promised land. As it turns out, Goldberg can't be your father. Molyneux can't be your brain. Hexenhammer can't be your pothead uncle. These are all nice ideas, but they don't reflect the world in which we live. And thus you'll see much of the resistance to practical solutions of one form or the other. So if you tell these guys, oh, hey, you know, maybe you should find a way to have some kids, and you might have to be a little bit more practical, like, oh, I don't have a perfect job. Okay, find a 4 or 5 out of 10, even if she's not a saint, and go on welfare. Take disability. If you really are so concerned about immigration, instead of just whining about that, find a way to be pushing back with your own actions. And then they go into the boomer morality spiraling. Oh, I would hate myself. Oh, you can't do that. That's not moral. And so they continuously cloister themselves in these spheres and these philosophies that give them an excuse not to have to do anything. At the same time, you've got that criticism of, like, black dudes. And I'm not even pretending all black dudes are capable of this, but I do think that a lot of black guys are better adapted to the instability of the modern age than these Mayo cells who think they're going to have the same life as their grandparents did. So what a lot of black dudes I've seen do, they have kids very young, even if they're not entirely able to support them, but they're getting that achieved. They're, passing on their genetics, if you believe that's important, and they still might be gaming women in their middle age. So it's a very different approach from saying, I have to find the trad wife, we have to get married, she has to be this way, we have to live in the suburbs and all that. You may never actually encounter it. And if you keep making up so many excuses and coping, you're going to be in the Philippines talking about how you need to stop immigration with your trad wife from there, which is just an embarrassment. So, like I said, it's not a touch grass argument. It's just a realization of how life works. You can't fix every problem by just tuning into more based content or trying to red pill people on the internet. It only goes so far. And so what you'll see these dudes tend to do is they'll latch on to any figure who somewhat validates them. There was Trump, obviously, then he gets elected president. People got buyer's remorse. What did they do? They, after a few years, it was Andrew Yang. Well, we might as well vote for him because he talked about white people. Really? Vote for the neoliberal because he just happened to signal that aspect of the meme? And then for a while it was Kanye because he talked about the Care Bears. Yeah, let's nominate a mentally ill rapper because he made you feel good about something you post your little anonymous memes for. Now the most recent one is Ramaswamy talked about working class whites. So yeah, the Nektzila, the inborn slave soul. I'm just going to find someone to hide behind to express some sliver of my opinions, even though that person doesn't care about you, your interests. They're just doing it to appear popular to the internet crowd. So it's where you go, maybe these guys need a serious kick in the pants. Maybe that would change things for the better, even though the cost would also be immense. While it might seem unlikely, conditions are ripe for if another conflict flares up, even if we're not talking about America versus China or America versus Russia directly, some kind of proxy conflict in the Middle East, or another thing you might not be thinking of is all those cartels. What if Iran or Russia were to coordinate with them, and then you've got these heavily armed, talking about RPGs, rockets, armor, professional troops, start moving into South Texas? Pretty much guarantee you the Texas National Guard is not doing appropriate drills to prepare for that scenario. And more than likely, those cartels could just steamroll a good chunk of the state before there's any degree of organization to stop them. What happens in those sorts of vignettes where your family could be threatened, where you might say, oh, there is a draft coming back? And when you consider that a lot of Americans are not fit, unless you happen to be a morbidly obese cell, they're probably going to be coming for you. Even myself, I'm not early 20s anymore, but I'm in better shape than the average American, so they might be calling me. If you found out that I'm going to be sent overseas, or hell, I'm going to be sent south, and in this particular region, there's a very high casualty rate. That might just be the kick in the pants for a lot of these Mayo cells to get up off their asses and, oh shoot, I better have a kid because I don't know if I'm going to be alive. I might get my head blown off in like 12 months. Maybe that would be the evolutionary drive which a lot of these internet dwellers, wignats, tradcons, instead of wrapping themselves in a digital ideology and standards, they would have to start living in a practical sense. Be like water, respond to your conditions instead of trying to maintain very outdated ideas of how the world is supposed to function. Yes, it would be horrible. Yes, a lot of people would die, but it might just result in something of eugenic effect because people are going to have to strive and not just, oh, I'm consuming content for 10 years and we're finally, the momentum's building. We're going to abolish feminism. We're going to save America. Those sorts of things is going to require a little bit more. Even with politics, it might compel these people to say, I need to start organizing to have more influence over the state, not just vote for a MAGA candidate who makes me feel good with their one-liners, because that state is going to send me to my death otherwise. Who knows? It could be pretty bad. I mean, even myself, I look at to where I've been DQ'd in the past from the military for some stupid vision thing, but they probably look past that because they don't have enough fit people. So as I've talked about, I think the best options would be like maybe state OCS, Air National Guard, if you can even do that. It might only be Army, or even I'd say I would consider Marine Officer Reserve if you could get like an IT or a cyber role. But even there, it might be a double-edged sword because they send you for infantry training first. So they might just go, oh, we'll use that. We'll make you head overseas. The point is, it sets you up for a new chapter in life, if you will, where you can't just go, oh, I'm a libertarian, I don't care. No, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your family. What are you going to do in those terms? Always have a meme response, or might you actually start going, well, shoot, I don't have that much life left to live, so I have to start living. And yes, the collateral damage, the impact on economics, on the central banking system, all those things are horrible on people's lives, absolutely. But maybe there would be some partial benefit, as sadistic and grotesque as that sounds. Let me know what you think.